Just a couple of points before we go into this interview with Tim Ballard. First of all, I saw the movie Sound of Freedom opening day. This is an incredible movie. It is sad, it is emotional, it is triumphant, and it is moving. It is very motivating, and it will change you. Make sure that you go out and see this movie, Sound of Freedom. Jim Cavieizel plays the character of Tim Ballard. Is the story of him getting involved with personally helping out children with the child sex trafficking trade, which is horrendously evil and growing throughout the world. Secondly, Tim talks about him being an author with a series he calls The American Covenant. He's got books on this that are called The Washington Hypothesis, The Lincoln Hypothesis, and others, talking about how the founding fathers they felt a purpose and a mission in making America the promised land and making it what it is today. He goes through this quite a bit in a tour that he hosts with Go and Do Travel. This tour is called the American Covenant Tour. He does this with Bruce Porter, a friend of mine, and that is October 16th to 28th, 2023. So if you want a chance to be with Tim for a week, you have a great chance to talk to him about this, to talk to him about Operation Underground Railroad and what he does and his story and the movie Sound of Freedom. Go take a look at this. I will put the link in the description code. The American Covenant Tour. This is in October from the 16th to the 28th of this year. Enjoy the interview. All right, welcome to Cwic Show. My name is Greg Mattson, and I am your host. In this episode, our guest is Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard is the founder of Operation Underground Railroad. He is the lead character played by Jim Cavieizel in the just-released movie Sound of Freedom. Tim is also an author focused on a series he calls The American Covenant. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Great. I first want to go into the Sound of Freedom movie. My wife and I just went and saw this yesterday. Oh. Incredibly moving. I don't know if there was a dry eye in the audience. And by the way, the theater was packed. In fact, they had at the theater, it was being played every hour in 2 or 3 different theaters. And they were a number of those showings were sold out. So it seems to be doing really well. Did you expect this kind of a response this early on?
Not at all, because I mean, the movie it was done and ready to come out in 2020. So for 3 years, almost, it just sat there. They went through different hands. It was Fox produced it. Disney bought that. They made it clear they weren't going to do anything, which is funny because now we're up against Indiana Jones, Disney's, right? Then when they got it, the producers got it back, and then it went through several hands, and it was like, man, maybe this thing sucks, because like I've watched hundreds of people watch it. They seem to like it, but maybe, and so I didn't. Who knows? It feels God's timing. That's what it feels like to us. Like now's the time that's right, and people are ready, and hearts are being touched. But the numbers are shocking to me. I mean, they had 10 million plus just in pre-sales, and since that time, there's been another 5 to 9 million and just walk-ins like in the first 2 days. So theaters are selling out. So it's a little overwhelming, but hopefully we can leverage this for good. That's the plan.
Yeah, well, absolutely. At the end of the movie, Jim Cavieizel comes on and he gives a little message at the end. And he talks about how important it is to actually show this in the movie theaters. And it really is, I think, a very different experience because you're there. This is a societal issue. This is a societal problem. And even though it can affect me individually, I think when you watch it together like that in a theater, there's just this feeling of the group that's like, we can't allow this. This is not, and I think the movie does a great job in reaching its objective, which is making you feel uncomfortable, but it's sad, but also triumphant in the end, right? There's solutions to this. There's things that can be done. And so did you feel that the movie that you've met the objective that you were trying to accomplish there?
I mean, yes. I can take very little credit for it. I'm just watching these guys who I think are artists, like extraordinaire, because I didn't know how they were going to do this. I mean, I don't watch the movie because I can't watch. I come in like after if they want me to speak, because it's very PTSD triggering for me.
Mhm.
They film so much in the same place where things happened. All the bad guys are real. The kids are real. So it's just a lot. But even for the average person who doesn't have the personal connection, I thought, how are they going to do this? And I told them, I said, I will not participate if you make anything that looks pornographic in nature, any kind of showing direct abuse of children. And they pulled it off. Like you said, they make you feel uncomfortable enough, but not so much that you're going to run out of the theater. A couple of times you might want to, and they never show it's a child sex assault. And yet you know exactly what's going on, and you're committed. And then they were able to tell the story in a way. I mean, I'll admit they make, Jim makes me look way, way cooler than I actually am or ever was. But
he does a great job.
Yeah, he does a great job. I mean, he's a good guy. So I think they did it. I'll end my comment with this thought is Alejandro Monteverde, the director, he said his goal was to make this movie into something that where the movie begins when you leave the theater. And I think that's happening.
Yeah, no, it was very well done. And just to put some underpinnings to this that people don't realize, this is all about child sex trafficking. Operation Underground Railroad is about helping to stop what's going on in the world right now. It's a major problem. And the movie just brings this out in a way that it just, Tim, I found myself more than once with a clenched fist in just the outrage of what's going on. It's like intellectually, we all know that there's evil out there. We all know that these problems exist, but maybe we're not immersed in it, right? It doesn't affect us directly. And so we don't think about these things as much. And this movie just brings up an awareness of this massive problem that you're dealing with 24/7.
And that's, one reason I think no one's ever looked at it or talked. Very few people talk about it. The mainstream media mostly leaves it alone. It's been one of our challenges. And yet here we are watching this piece of media that's touching hearts. Because they dodge those big bullets of, you don't have to deal with, direct, just like in your face, horrific, pornographic almost material. And people need to know they're going to walk in not seeing that, but you are going to feel it, but you're going to go on an adventure that, like you said, Greg, ends in a good news story and ends in a solution.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way I felt on this. Now, let me ask you this, though. I mean, because it is emotional, right? You're going to go on an emotional ride with this. And, in the movie, it depicts you as you're an agent in the Homeland Security. You're deciding you're going to move off on your own. You get Operation Underground Railroad started and to take care of the kids and not just the perpetrators. And yet I'm going through this for a couple of hours. How do you deal with this material every day? How do you get through that?
It's hard. I mean, I haven't got through it really. I haven't figured it out. You see that scene when Cavieizel is looking at the material, at the child exploitation material, and it's just, you don't see anything but his eye. I mean, that's one of the hardest scenes for me to watch, actually. That represents, I don't know how many thousands of hours I've had to spend 12 years as an agent. I mean, you have to look at everything and describe it in detail and watch the video and then rewind and watch it and then try to identify the child. And all I can say is it burns a million holes in your brain and you have to get help. For me, it's faith. Faith is everything. In fact, I don't know how someone even does any of this work without faith that, in a savior that can heal and all the kids you're never going to get, and the redemption that happens for all God's children at the end. Like, if I didn't know that and understand that even these horrific things will somehow be used for their experience and somehow it makes sense to God, I would either quit or just keel over and die myself, because it's that dark.
Yeah, that is right. I think also at the same time, I'm thinking when I walk out of that movie, I think to myself, God, I don't know if there's many causes greater than what you're doing. Right. There's just this feeling, this motivation of that's got to be part of what keeps you going too with the faith. It's just that what you're doing is fighting just this horrific evil out there.
Right.
Yeah. You have. Let me ask you a couple of questions about Operation Underground Railroad on this. How bad are things out there? I mean, is this a problem that is growing? Is it diminishing? How bad is the problem?
The problem, unfortunately, is growing. We see the numbers going up, not down, in terms of every kind of metric, from the increase in child sex abuse material that's going on. I think in the last like 5 years, I think it's gone up like 5,000%, some crazy number. And then, the number of abuse, the number of countries that are reporting additional more abuse. I mean, the pornified world we live in creates sex addiction, and our culture is not helping any of this by promoting that and normalizing that, and now normalizing it before children, calling it sex education, and providing all sorts of just ungodly material to them that I used to be able to arrest people for providing children with. Now teachers are providing this material in the name of sex education. And now 13 and 14-year-olds are able to consent to whatever to their body, which means the next around the corner is they're going to consent to be able to have sex with adults, and the pedophile groups are waiting just to jump in on this. So I used to think maybe I would be out of a job someday because we were able to get all the kids. I'm now worried we're going to be out of a job because all the laws we need to protect children and enforce their protection and to prosecute the bad guys are going to be gone. I mean, these laws are being eroded by this culture of sexualization of children, where it's being, they're trying to change the name pedophile to minor attracted person. This is a real movement that's getting into even the mainstream of the country, that's saying we need to be tolerant. And it's just, no, pedophile is the right word but it's triggering. It's a red flag word. That's right. That's
absolutely,
it should be. So we're having to fight in this battle in places I didn't realize I was going to have to fight, like the culture of America. Whoever thought we'd have to fight the culture of this country to protect children?
Yeah, it's like in fact, in the movie quotes this too, but we're moving into millstone territory here. This is, and we're moving to a point where it's becoming, society is aware of it enough that we better start doing something about it, because otherwise we are a part of the problem that's going on there. And I think that, so when I say moving into millstone territory, I'm saying as a society, right, we cannot allow this. This is kind of like that last barrier of saying, where do we stop with all of this? Right. And we've got to stop with the kids. You got to stop there.
Yeah. When they come for the kids, I mean, I never thought spiritual warfare has always been going on, but never did I dream that we would see a day this country never has before, where children are in the crosshairs of spiritual warfare. It's bizarre. This used to be I've been hunting pedophiles for almost 20 years. It's always been this closet kind of ones and twosies here and there, and they're embarrassed. Not anymore. They're coming out. They're proud. They're saying it's our time to shine, and it's the children's time to be sexualized, and we should glorify in this. It's crazy land right now.
Yeah, it is. And our culture's changing to a point where anything is tolerated, even that. So it's not a good place to be right now. How exactly does Operation Underground Railroad attack this? What do you guys do exactly to help solve this problem?
So the operation you see depicted in the film, those kind of operations are being conducted, not always so intense, but sometimes, and they're being conducted all over the world. And we have 5 regions, all that cover the entire earth, and so the sun never sets on our operations, and it's a constant thing. I also am the CEO of another foundation that Glenn Beck founded back in 2014 called the Nazarene Fund, and it's very similar work. We manage operations in fighting organ harvesting of children, human trafficking, and any kind of refugee crisis, with a focus on persecuted Christians in regions like the Middle East or Africa, where Christians are getting beat up. So all in all, we exist to support law enforcement. We exist to support aftercare services, and ultimately we exist to liberate the captive.
Do you collect intelligence yourself there?
Yes. Yeah, we collect intelligence, provide it to the authorities, then work with the authorities, basically as consultants. We're basically, and sometimes they'll sign us up to do undercover work if we can do something for them in that way. Sometimes it's training, sometimes it's technology we provide, intel packages, anything we can do to support liberating children from slavery.
Do you get pushback from some governments that they don't want anything to do with it?
Yeah, in the beginning, we did quite a bit because, we had to knock on the door and say, hey, here, look at our services for free. And but not anymore. I mean, we can't even keep up with the demand we have. Countries knocking at the door, we can't even respond. So we don't bother with those who are in denial or think that working with a private organization is somehow not right.
Now, in the film, it says that the U.S., I think it said that the U.S. has the largest demand for this. Is that true?
Yeah. The United States is the largest consumer of the metric we use that we know for a fact is that the United States is the number one consumer of child rape videos. Also, sometimes number one in production of child rape videos. And so, I call it the economy of pedophilia, right? Where it's, we have this concentration, this exceptional and tragic concentration of pedophiles or people who want to engage in sex with children. That's why when you see movements like the minor attracted persons movement happening here, it's being birthed here, or the sexualization of children through sex ed here, or when 85,000 unaccompanied minors show up at the southern border. I was 10 years on that border. When 85,000 unaccompanied minors, thousands of these are under 5 years old, by the way, and they're showing up unaccompanied, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and they have a little name in their hand, a piece of paper, bobby pinned to their shirt that has a name, George Smith, Eric Johnson, whatever. And that's the sponsor. And the policy of the United States government is call the number and take the kid to the sponsor. Background checks, nope. DNA checks, nope. Any kind of vetting, zero. And the kid just, in fact, now our taxpayer dollars pay. Once George Smith picks up the phone and says, yeah, that little kid's mine, we actually put him on an airplane or a bus and send them, deliver him in what might likely be the very end of the last leg of a child trafficking event. I mean, so when you put it all together, you recognize the United States, gone are the days that we think we can say, this is a problem far, far away. No, we are the problem. And so we must be also the solution. Is
there any inkling of policy change on that type of unaccompanied minor in immigration right now?
Oh, not at all. In fact, the administration just canceled there was a rapid DNA technology program. They canceled it last month. So it's just, everybody come in, we're so compassionate. No, compassion is border enforcement. Compassion is sucking the wind out of the sails of child traffickers, not blowing the wind into the sails, which is what we're doing in the name of compassion. Again, just like we're sexualizing kids in the name of liberating them. We're enslaving children in the name of liberating them. Everything's, it's Isaiah, right? They will call good evil and evil good. I mean, that's everywhere in this whole situation.
Yeah, unbridled compassion, I would say. It's all unbridled compassion. There's no truth or order assigned to it. So, all right. Well, we'll put the links here for the Operation Underground Railroad and for the movie Sound of Freedom in the description box. I want to change subjects here and go to the American Covenant. This is something that you write about. You seem to be pretty passionate about it. You've got a tour that you run with this in October on the American Covenant. Tell us a little bit about what that is. What is your thesis behind this?
Well, it was born, actually, it's connected to my work because in my dark days of going undercover, I would find just like light reading American history and the scriptures. I don't know why, like those are my two sources. And after a while I started going, well, this is the same story. American history reads like a scriptural story. And so I just started writing books about it. I didn't set out. I never saw myself as an author. That wasn't my goal, but I just started writing, and I've been able to publish several books, and so the idea being that the founding fathers of this country understood America in a very similar way that the Israelites understood their promised land, that there's a covenant attached to the land, that God has placed this land under covenant, and if you're righteous in this land, you will prosper in this land. And what's so interesting is, if you go back and look at the history of everyone who, the revolutionaries, John Adams, Washington, all the way up, Lincoln himself, Lincoln adopted the idea as well of a covenant relationship. And the idea is we got to activate this thing now, again, because as righteousness is fleeing before our faces, as per everything we just talked about, that covenant won't be ignited. That covenant won't be reciprocated, and we're going to start losing liberties, which we are, protection, which we are, and prosperity, which we are and will continue to do. And so the goal is let's bring this covenant back. Let's get the people to accept that what the founding fathers taught us, and hopefully God will then, and He will respond with the blessings we seek.
Do you think that, because you're right about, you've got the Washington hypothesis, the Lincoln hypothesis, and you talk about how they do act as if they are under this covenant. It's a purpose that they have. Do you think that others around them felt something similar?
Oh yeah, like with Lincoln, for example, one of the coolest parts of that story is he didn't understand that concept at all, or very little when he was the president. It took him 2 years of deep humiliation until he fell to his knees and said, God, what do you want me to do? And the voices that were telling, in addition to God's voice, which he would actually credit clearly and unapologetically, but it was the abolitionist voices. It was the slaves and the former slaves and the abolitionists, the survivors who saw it first. The Frederick Douglass saw it first. Harriet Tubman saw it first. And they were screaming at Lincoln until he finally listened. And then he got further confirmation from God, and boom, changes the whole purpose of the war and places the nation under covenant. And I'm not saying that casually. Like, his words are very clear. He places the nation under covenant. He tells the nation, if you are righteous, and then the first step of righteousness is getting rid of this horrific thing called slavery, then God can bless us. He wasn't even shy about it by 1863.
Yeah, you have an American Covenant tour. This is October 16th to 28th. We'll put a link to that as well. If people are interested in spending a week with Tim, it'd be a great opportunity. Tim, thanks for all that you're doing. How can people get involved with what you do?
Well, people, right now we're just trying to fill theaters. We're hoping 2 million people come to the theaters this week. It's looking good, representing the 2 million children that are estimated to be stuck in the commercial sex trade. So people can go to angel.com/freedom, buy tickets for yourself, buy tickets for others. They can come and get those tickets at Angel if they can't afford it. And then, OURrescue.org, theNazareneFund.org. Those are places you can go to get even more directly involved in eliminating and destroying this horrible thing called child slavery.
Great. We'll put those links all in the description box. And I want to just tell everyone just ending off here, go see the movie. It will change you. Its objective is to change you. It will change you, I promise. Tim, thanks so much for your time and all your work. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you.